Nagoya pregnant woman murder. In March of 1988, on a quiet Friday afternoon in a second-floor apartment in Nakagawa Ward, Nagoya, a young woman 5 days past her due date, was at home alone. A friend had visited that afternoon with a toddler. They had spent a couple of hours together. The friend had left around 3 in the afternoon. The husband returned home from work at 7:40 in the evening to a dark apartment. He stepped inside. He heard a baby crying. 40,000 investigators would work the case over the next 15 years. The killer would never be identified. The case would expire under Japan's pre-2010 statute of limitations on the 17th of March, 2003, untouched. Mitsuko Moriya was 27, a housewife in her 3rd year of marriage. She had been 5 days past her March 13th due date at the time of her killing, carrying her first child. She had been working in direct sales home distribution to neighborhood housewives. Her husband, Shinichi Moriya, was 31 and worked as a salaryman. That morning, Mitsuko had attended a routine prenatal checkup and had reportedly been in cheerful spirits. A female friend had visited the apartment between roughly 1:50 and 3 that afternoon with her toddler. As Mitsuko walked her friend to the parking lot, she left the front door unlocked. A postal worker noted nothing unusual at 4. By 6:50 in the evening, the home phone went unanswered. Husband Shinichi returned at approximately 7:40 to find the apartment dark. How does a young woman, full term, get attacked in her own apartment in broad daylight, with her front door unlocked, and no one across the building hears anything? The crime scene was characterized by Chunichi Shimbun reporters as a savage and atrocious crime rarely seen in history. Mitsuko had been killed with the kotatsu electric cord, her hands bound behind her back. After her death, the killer had performed a violent surgical procedure on her body to extract the full-term male infant. The infant was alive, but suffering hypothermia and superficial cuts. The newborn was rushed to Nagoya Seisekai Hospital, given a transfusion from his paternal grandfather, and survived. He was discharged on April 2nd, 1988. The killer had stuffed 2 foreign objects into Mitsuko's body: a telephone receiver torn from the household phone, and a Mickey Mouse keychain. What kind of person plans an attack like this, executes it in less than 4 hours, and walks back out into a quiet Nagoya neighborhood without leaving a single useful trace? Aichi Prefectural Police deployed approximately 40,000 investigators over the 15-year investigation. The killer had wiped fingerprints clean and washed blood off in the kitchen sink. The only physical evidence was a single 25-centimeter shoe print from a Korean or Taiwanese counterfeit sneaker. Police listed roughly 1,000 suspicious persons and interviewed about 500 acquaintances. None became confirmed suspects. Witnesses reported a man in his 30s, around 165 centimeters tall, asking for a non-existent Mr. Nakamura at neighbors' doors that afternoon. 3 competing motive theories developed: robbery, given that Mitsuko's wallet was missing; personal grudge, given the professionalism of evidence erasure; and a paraphiliac motive by someone obsessed with pregnancy. Forensic profiler Toshifumi Ishii at Tokyo Medical and Dental University characterized the offender as an emotionally deficient personality disordered male, mixed organized and disorganized type, likely to act once and not become a serial killer. This case was not saved by Japan's 2010 reform abolishing the statute of limitations for capital crimes. The 15-year limit expired at midnight on March 17th to 18th, 2003, 7 years before the reform. The killer can no longer be prosecuted in Japan. As of 2024, per Japanese sources, 36 years after the killing, the perpetrator has still not been identified. A March 2025 Daily Shinsho retrospective and a February 2026 podcast episode revisited the case, but produced no new leads. The surviving son was raised by his paternal grandfather. In 1999, the family emigrated to Hawaii to escape public attention. Mitsuko's father told Mainichi Shimbun in 2003, "Even if the perpetrator is arrested now, my daughter won't come back. I hate the statute of limitations system." But the next case would unfold in a Tokyo supermarket on a summer night 7 years later, where 3 female employees were ambushed at a doorway and executed in a back office. Hachioji supermarket murders. On the night of July 30th, 1995, in the city of Hachioji on the western edge of Tokyo, a small supermarket had just closed for the evening. The lights were off. 3 female employees were upstairs in the second-floor office, locking up the day's takings. They never came back down. They were found later that night, all 3 of them, executed at close range with a low-quality handgun. The killer had not taken a single yen. He had fired a 5th round into the safe door and walked away. The case has now sat for 30 years. It is one of the largest unsolved investigations in Tokyo Metropolitan Police history. 3 women were killed inside the second-floor office of the Nampei Owada 10 supermarket. Noriko Inagaki, 47, was a part-time worker who served as the night manager responsible for placing daily takings into the office safe. She had reportedly received an anonymous threatening letter weeks earlier, containing a cutter knife blade and the words, "If this continues, you will lose your life." The sender was never identified. Megumi Yabuki was a high school sophomore who hoped to become a preschool teacher. Hiromi Maeda was also a high school sophomore, off duty that evening but visiting to check her schedule and join Yabuki at a local Bonadori festival. By 9 in the evening, the store was closed and lights were off. Inagaki phoned a male acquaintance at 9:15 asking for a ride. Door security logs show the office was locked at 9:15 but unlocked again at 9:16. Police believe the gunman ambushed the women on the outdoor staircase and forced them back inside. Inagaki was struck in the face with the gun butt, pushed beside the safe, and shot at contact range. The 2 younger women were gagged with adhesive tape, hands bound back to back, and each shot once. The killer hit each victim's brainstem precisely. A 5th round was fired into the safe door. Nothing was stolen. The safe held approximately 5 million yen in untouched takings. How does a man with no obvious motive walk into a small Tokyo supermarket, execute 3 women in less than 10 minutes, and disappear into a city of 13 million without leaving a single witness? The weapon was a Philippine-made revolver, a low-quality Colt clone sometimes used by Yakuza. Forensic specialists noted the offender's accuracy was consistent with firearms training. The Tokyo Metropolitan Police set up a special investigation headquarters that has accumulated over 220,000 officer deployments and 1,678 tips through 2025. Physical evidence recovered included mitochondrial DNA from sweat and a partial fingerprint on the adhesive tape, a cigarette butt with lipstick that did not match any employee, 10 footprints from a sneaker sold in Tama region stores, and the bullets used to compare against later seized weapons. In February of 2015, police announced an 8-point fingerprint match to a male delivery worker who had died of natural causes around 2005. His son had been in a costly traffic accident a month before the killings, providing potential motive. However, DNA from the man's relatives did not match the tape DNA, and his time card provided an alibi. Could the answer have been sitting in a Chinese prison the whole time? In summer of 2009, a Japanese man on death row in Dalian prison in China told Chinese authorities he knew information about the Hachioji case. Japanese investigators conducted a 4-day interview at Dalian Detention Center. The Japanese man named a Chinese friend, Mr. K, as someone with knowledge of the killings. He was executed in China on April 9, 2010. The Chinese man, who had fled to Canada in 2002 and obtained refugee status in Toronto, was extradited to Japan in November of 2013, convicted only of passport fraud and deported back to Canada the following day. The 15-year limit would have expired July 30th, 2010, but Japan's April 27th, 2010 abolition of the statute of limitations for capital crimes preceded that by 3 months, saving the case. It has no time limit. NHK aired a 2-part documentary in October of 2025. The TMPD continues to offer a 6 million yen reward. But the next case would unfold not in a single night, but across 14 years in rural Saga Prefecture, and 6 of the 7 would vanish on a Wednesday. The Wednesday Strangler / Saga Prefecture Murders. Between August of 1975 and January of 1989, in a 20-kilometer radius around the small towns of Kitagata, Shiroishi, and Takeo in Saga Prefecture, on the southern Japanese island of Kyushu, 7 women were killed by a person or persons never identified. 6 of the 7 disappeared on a Wednesday. The cluster has come to be called, in popular Japanese true crime, the Saga Women's 7-person serial murder case, or simply the Wednesday Strangler. Saga Prefectural Police became so notorious for their failures on this case, they earned the nickname Saba Kenkei, meaning the police that cannot handle cases. The first known victim was Tomiko Yamasaki, a young schoolgirl who disappeared on Wednesday, August 27, 1975. Her body was found nearly 5 years later in a septic tank under Suko Elementary School, with around 100 stones piled atop her. The second was Ritsuko Hayakutake, 20, who vanished in April of 1980. Her body was found in June of that year in a different septic tank under the same school. The third was Chizuko Ikegami, 27, killed October 7, 1981. The fourth was Kumi Nishiyama, 11, killed February 17, 1982. After her killing, postcards arrived from the killer reading, "I intended to kidnap her for ransom, but she made a fuss, so I killed her." What does it take in a small rural prefecture for a serial killer to operate for 14 years across the same 20-kilometer stretch of land? 3 more women, Sumiko Fujise, Kiyomi Nakajima, and Tatsuyo Yoshino, disappeared between July of 1987 and January of 1989. All 3 bodies were found together on January 27, 1989, beneath a cliff at Otogi Mountain Pass, within a few meters of one another. The killer demonstrated detailed local knowledge. The husband of Nakajima received a phone call referring to the body dump site as Yakigome, a name only locals used. 2 investigations crystallized the case in Japanese legal memory. A man identified in Japanese sources only as Yu, or A, a farmer from Shiroishi, was arrested in 1981 for connection to the first 2 victims because his handwriting matched the threatening letter sent to Hayakutake's father. He was released for lack of evidence and later imprisoned for an unrelated assault, providing alibis for victims 3 and 4. For the 3 Kitagata bodies, Teruhiko Matsue, Yoshino's lover with a methamphetamine record, was arrested in November of 1989. He confessed during interrogation, then quickly recanted, alleging police coercion. Charges were dropped. Rearrested in June of 2002, prosecutors filed indictments against Matsui for 2 of the killings just 6 hours before the statute of limitations on the Fujise case expired. How do you indict a man 6 hours before the clock runs out, only to have a court throw the case out 3 years later? The Saga District Court acquitted Matsue in April of 2005, citing coercive interrogation. The Fukuoka High Court upheld the acquittal in March of 2007, with Saga Prefectural Police admitting to a flawed investigation. Matsui received 5.8 million yen in compensation. Mainichi Shimbun, in January of 2008, alleged police had tampered with the timing of forensic evidence to fit Matsui. Matsui was later convicted in 2012 for 127 burglaries across 4 prefectures. Most analysts now divide the 7 killings into at least 3 groups. The first 2 are linked by the school disposal site and the early suspect. The middle 2 form a separate cluster around Nakabaru and Kitashigayasu. The Kitagata 3 form their own affair. The single killer Wednesday pattern theory persists in popular Japanese true crime circles, in part because of how unusual it is that 6 of the 7 women vanished on the same day of the week, and in part because the dump sites themselves followed local custom. All 7 cases hit Japan's pre-2010 15-year statute of limitations or were acquitted before 2010. The 2010 reform does not apply retroactively. All 7 cases are permanently closed. No active reinvestigation exists as of 2026. Surviving suspects, if alive, would now be between 56 and 86 years old. The families of the 7 women have, in many cases, themselves passed on, never knowing why their daughters and mothers had been chosen. But the next case would not be a serial killing at all, but the killing of a single Tokyo Electric Power executive whose double life shocked an entire nation and whose case sent the wrong man to prison for 15 years. Murder of Yasuko Watanabe. In March of 1997, in a vacant first-floor apartment room in the Maruyama-cho neighborhood of Shibuya, Tokyo, the body of a 39-year-old woman was found. 11 days after she had been killed, she had been an unmarried Keio University economics graduate, one of the first 9 women hired onto Tokyo Electric Power's elite career track. She had been earning 13 million yen a year. By night, in the same neighborhood where she was found, she had been working as a streetwalker, enforcing a self-imposed quota of 4 men per night. The wrong man would serve 15 years in Japanese prison for her killing. The actual killer has never been identified. Yasuko Watanabe was 39, an unmarried Keio University graduate. At 35, she was promoted to deputy chief of TEPCO's planning division. Unprecedented for a woman. Her father, also a TEPCO engineer, had died of cancer when she was a Keio sophomore. After his death, she developed severe anorexia and weighed under 36 kilograms at 167 centimeters. After being passed over for a Harvard program in favor of a female colleague, she was loaned out to a quasi-governmental think tank. By night, she worked as a streetwalker, charging as little as 40,000 yen per encounter. The phenomenon of working women identifying with her self-destructive descent was dubbed Yasuko syndrome. Watanabe's body was found on March 19, 1997, in a vacant first-floor room of a wooden Maruyama-cho apartment, killed 11 days earlier. Approximately 40,000 yen was missing from her wallet. Her commuter pass was found a kilometer from her home in Sugamo, an area the eventual suspect had no familiarity with. Govinda Prasad Mainali, 30, was an illegal overstayer Nepali working in an Indian restaurant. He lived in the building adjoining the killing site. He surrendered to police on March 22, 1997. He admitted having had paid sex with Watanabe, but denied the killing. What does it look like when a country's criminal justice system decides, against the evidence, that a foreign man must be the answer? The trial trajectory was a slow nightmare. On April 14, 2000, the Tokyo District Court acquitted Mainali, citing inconclusive evidence and DNA from a third party at the scene. 8 months later, in December of 2000, the Tokyo High Court reversed on appeal and imposed a life sentence. Japanese prosecutorial appeal of acquittals being a long criticized feature of the system. In October of 2003, the Supreme Court rejected his final appeal. The sentence was final. He was a foreign man, in a country he could not get out of, serving a life sentence for a killing he had not committed. In July of 2011, new DNA testing revealed bodily fluid recovered from Watanabe's body did not match Mainali. It matched a third party, Sample 376, whose DNA was on her underwear, lips, fingernails, and Burberry coat. In September of 2011, prosecutors finally disclosed that saliva on her chest was type O blood. Mainali is type B. Evidence withheld for 14 years. On June 7, 2012, the Tokyo High Court granted a retrial. Mainali was deported June 16, 2012. On November 7, 2012, the Tokyo High Court formally acquitted him. On February 6, 2013, he received the legal maximum 68 million yen compensation for 5,500 days of imprisonment. Could the actual killer, identified only by his DNA fingerprint, still be walking around Tokyo today? The case remains officially unsolved. The actual killer has never been identified. Because the killing occurred in 1997 and was less than 15 years old in 2010, the statute of limitations was abolished retroactively. The case is open indefinitely. Mainali, age 58, lives unemployed in Nepal. In a December 2024 interview, he said simply, "I lost the most important period of my life." Tokyo High Prosecutor's spokesman, Takayuki Aoki, publicly stated after the retrial that the investigation and the first trial itself were not problematic. Many reformers cite this as proof of Japan's enduring institutional resistance to acknowledging error. The case profoundly shaped Japanese fiction. Natsuo Kirino's 2003 novel Grotesque, centered on a daytime corporate elite turned Shibuya streetwalker, explicitly modeled on Watanabe. Women began leaving purple orchids at an unofficial shrine in Maruyama-cho. The killer's DNA is still in Japanese police files. He is, mathematically, still alive. But the next case would unfold not in a vacant apartment, but in the trash cans of Tokyo's most beloved family park, where one morning a cleaner reached into a bag thinking she had found raw meat for stray cats and found a human ankle. Inokashira Park dismemberment. On the morning of April 23, 1994, at Inokashira Onshi Park in Tokyo, a 59-year-old female park cleaner noticed a faint pinkish color through a translucent plastic bag in a trash can. She thought it was raw meat for stray cats. She opened it. She found a human foot. Police searches recovered 27 body parts in 24 plastic bags across 7 trash cans. Only about a third of a human body. The head, most of the torso, and all of the internal organs were never found. The case would become one of Japan's most chilling forensic puzzles and one of the most unanimous police conclusions in cold case history. Whoever did this had specialized knowledge. Whoever did this had practice. The victim, identified by partial fingerprints in the dermis layer 3 days later, was Seiichi Kawamura, 35, a first-class licensed architect at a Shinbashi design firm who had recently been promoted. He lived in a 2-generation home he had designed himself, just 100 meters from the park, with his pregnant wife, son, and parents. Family, colleagues, and Boy Scout acquaintances unanimously described a gentle man with no known enemies, no debts, no extramarital affairs. On April 21st, after work, he attended a celebration of his promotion in Takadanobaba, parted from former colleagues at Shinjuku Station around 11 that night, and was last spotted on a Chuo Line train heading west. His wife filed a missing persons report the next evening. He was already dead by then. His body, broken into pieces, was already in the bags. How does a quiet, well-liked young architect with no enemies and no secrets end up dismembered into 27 pieces and dumped in trash cans of a public park within 48 hours of leaving a work celebration? The dismemberment was extraordinary. Pieces had been cut to a uniform 20 to 22 centimeter length regardless of joints, with muscles shaved from thicker pieces as if measured with a ruler. The dimensions matched the postbox-style trash can openings exactly. The disposal site had been planned in advance. 3 distinct cutting patterns were identified, suggesting multiple perpetrators in assembly line fashion. Every body part was completely drained of blood, even capillaries, and scrubbed clean, requiring industrial water access far beyond a household bathroom. The handsaw used was not an electric saw, suggesting someone willing to endure hours of bone cutting. Each segment was double-bagged: an inner perforated drainage bag, an outer Tokyo trash bag, tied with knots characteristic of fishermen, cooks, or medical workers. Fingerprints and palm prints had been deliberately scraped off with a sharp blade. What does a killer have to know, and what does a killer have to feel to spend hours doing all of that? Tokyo Metropolitan Police set up a special headquarters at Mitaka Station. 37,000 investigator days were ultimately deployed. The investigation was crippled by the March 20, 1995 Aom Shinrikyo subway siren attack 11 months later, which redirected 1st Investigation Division detectives away from the Kawamura Task Force. The task force was disbanded. By the time it had been restaffed, the trail had gone fully cold. Theories considered include organized crime and yakuza, or foreign criminal organizations, the most prevalent. Ritual killing tied to a religious organization, which Kawamura's widow publicly denied. Personal grudge with no leads. And a hit-and-run cover-up, which forensic evidence ruled out. None produced a suspect. In March of 2015, 6 years after the statute of limitations had expired, a journalist published a controversial interview with a man, A, who claimed he had been a Kichijoji area street vendor leader, looked strikingly like Kawamura, and believed Kawamura had been killed by mistake by foreign criminal operatives targeting him. The account remains uncorroborated. Japan's pre-reform 15-year statute of limitations expired at midnight on April 23rd to 24th, 2009. Almost exactly 1 year before the 2010 abolition law took effect on April 28, 2010. The case is permanently barred from prosecution. Kawamura's father, Seizo, self-published a private memoir titled The Trajectory of My Heart's Concern, and died of illness, still hoping to see the killer caught. His wife, who had been pregnant when her husband was taken, raised their child without him. The case bookends a generation of Japanese dismemberment crime when contrasted with the later 2017 Zama Twitter killer case, whose perpetrator was executed by hanging on June 27, 2025. The Inokashira killer, in contrast, has had 32 years of freedom and counting. If you've made it this far and enjoy deep dives into the most shocking criminal cases, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to press the bell icon. But the next case would unfold not in a Tokyo park, but on the 7th floor landing of a university campus in Ibaraki Prefecture, where a translator who had spent his career trying to bridge 2 cultures was found in a pool of blood beside the elevator. Murder of Hitoshi Igarashi. On the morning of July 12, 1991, in a quiet hallway on the 7th floor of the University of Tsukuba, a 44-year-old associate professor of comparative Islamic culture was found in a pool of blood beside an elevator. He had multiple stab wounds to his face, neck, chest, abdomen, and hands. The defensive wounds suggested he had fought back. Forensics found a second blood type at the scene that did not match his own. They found 2 sets of bloody footprints leading away. The killer was never identified. The case has now been closed by Japan's pre-2010 statute of limitations. The man who took him is, in all likelihood, still alive somewhere on Earth. Hitoshi Igarashi was 44 at his death and an associate professor at the University of Tsukuba. He had completed his Tokyo University doctoral program in Islamic art in 1976, then served until 1979 as a research fellow at the Imperial Iranian Academy of Philosophy in Tehran. He was reportedly fluent in roughly 15 languages. He had translated Avicenna's Canon of Medicine into Japanese in 1981 and authored a book called The Islamic Renaissance in 1986. He was widely sympathetic to Islamic mystical traditions. He had viewed Salman Rushdie's controversial novel, The Satanic Verses, within a Sufi poetic frame, and he had agreed, after careful consideration, to translate it into Japanese. On February 14, 1989, Ayatollah Khomeini issued a fatwa calling for the killing of Rushdie and all the editors and publishers aware of the book's contents. Khomeini died later that year, but the fatwa was reaffirmed by his successor, Ali Khamenei, in March of 1991. With a multi-million-dollar bounty from the Iran-controlled 15th Khordad Foundation that has risen from $1 million in 1989 to roughly $3.9 million today. What does it take to translate a banned book in a country half a world away from where it was banned, knowing what has been said about you, and to keep going to work the next morning? Igarashi was found in a pool of blood near his office elevator with multiple stab wounds. Police recovered prints from large Chinese-made kung fu slipper-style shoes. Robbery was ruled out. Just 9 days earlier, on July 3, 1991, Ettore Capriolo, the Italian translator of the same book, had been stabbed roughly 10 times by a man posing as an Iranian embassy attaché at his Milan apartment. Capriolo survived. On October 11, 1993, William Nygaard, the Norwegian publisher of the same book, would be shot 3 times outside his Oslo home. Nygaard would also survive. Igarashi was the only one who did not. How does a coordinated international campaign of attacks on book translators stay unsolved across 3 different countries for 30 years? No arrest was ever made in the Igarashi case. Japanese investigators officially refused to publicly link the killing to the fatwa. Local witnesses accused Japan's foreign ministry of pressuring police to avoid pursuing a foreign connection that might damage relations with oil-supplying Middle Eastern nations. Kenneth Pollock later alleged in his book, The Persian Puzzle, that the killing was an Iranian Revolutionary Guard operation. A 2010 Bungai Shunju article cited Japanese Immigration Bureau rumor that a wealthy Bangladeshi suspect flew home the next day before the body was discovered, and Japan declined extradition. The claim remains uncorroborated. Japan's 15-year statute of limitations expired in July of 2006, and the case was formally closed. The 2010 abolition was not retroactive. The fatwa never lifted. On August 12, 2022, 24-year-old Hadi Matar rushed the stage at the Chautauqua Institution in New York and stabbed Salman Rushdie roughly 15 times. Rushdie lost sight in his right eye and the use of one hand. On February 21, 2025, Matar was convicted of second-degree attempted murder. On May 16, 2025, he was sentenced to the maximum 25 years. Federal prosecutors had separately indicted Matar on 3 terrorism charges, alleging he was carrying out the Iranian fatwa under Hezbollah influence, framing his attack as the latest manifestation of the same fatwa-driven campaign that had killed Igarashi 33 years earlier. But the next case would unfold not as a single killing, but as a year-and-a-half-long extortion campaign by a faceless group calling itself the Monster, with 21 faces, who terrorized Japan's confectionery industry, taunted police in newspaper letters, and ended their reign without a single arrest. The Monster with 21 Faces. In the spring of 1984, a 42-year-old corporate president was bathing at his mother's house in Nishinomiya, Hyogo, when 2 masked men broke in. They bound his mother. They bound his wife. They bound his 7-year-old daughter in a bathroom. They dragged him naked from the bath into a getaway car. They demanded 1 billion yen and 100 kilograms of gold bullion, the largest ransom in Japanese history at that point. The president escaped after 65 hours by kicking down a door at a flood defense warehouse and fleeing barefoot down a riverbank. Nobody was arrested. The case grew from a kidnapping into an 18-month theatrical extortion campaign that would terrorize the country and end without a single arrest. Katsuhisa Ezaki was president of Ezaki Glico, the iconic Osaka confectionery house famous for Pocky, Pretz, and the Dotonbori Running Man sign. He was kidnapped at about 9 in the evening on Sunday, March 18, 1984. After his escape, the perpetrators began sending taunting letters signed Kaijin Nijuichi Menso, the monster with 21 faces. The name was a riff on the Edogawa Rampo pulp villain, the fiend with the 20 faces. More than 100 letters were ultimately sent, typewritten in mocking Osaka dialect hiragana. An April letter to police read, "To the police fools, are you all stupid? What the hell are you doing with all that manpower? Shall we kidnap the head of the prefectural police too? How do you taunt the entire national police agency for 18 months and walk away without ever being identified?" 6 companies were targeted: Ezaki Glico, Morinaga, Marudai Ham, House Foods, Fujiya, and Surugaya. The May 1984 letter to Glico claimed candy had been laced with cyanide. Major retailers pulled Glico products despite Ezaki's objections. Glico stock fell. 450 part-time workers were laid off, and total reported sales loss reached approximately 21 billion yen. When extortion shifted to Morinaga in October of 1984, police recovered 21 packages of tampered choco balls and angel pies between October of 1984 and February of 1985, each labeled with the message, "Danger, contains toxins. You'll die if you eat this." The monster with 21 faces. The only physical description of any suspect emerged on June 28, 1984. A police investigator on a cash-drop train from Osaka noticed a large, well-built tail with short permed hair, sunglasses, and eyes like those of a fox. The man evaded surveillance at Kyoto Station. On November 14, 1984, during the House Foods drop at the Meishin Expressway near Otsu in Shiga Prefecture, the fox-eyed man was again spotted and again escaped. About an hour earlier, a Shiga Prefectural patrol officer who was unaware of the secret operation stopped a stolen white Nissan station wagon idling near the drop point. The driver, wearing a golf cap and headphones tuned to police radio across 6 prefectures, sped off, lost the patrol car, and abandoned the vehicle. What happens to a senior police officer who has just publicly let a serial extortionist slip away on his watch? Following the November humiliation, Shiga Prefectural Police Superintendent Shoji Yamamoto, 59, was relieved of his post on August 7, 1985. Hours later, he doused himself in kerosene and burned himself to death in his official residence's backyard. 5 days later, on August 12, 1985, the monster sent its final letter. "Yamamoto of Shiga Prefecture Police died. How stupid of him. No career Yamamoto died like a man. So we decided to give our condolence. We decided to forget about torturing food-making companies. It's fun to lead a bad man's life. Monster with 21 faces." The group never communicated again. Approximately 1.3 million police officers were mobilized and 28,000 tips received over the 16-year investigation. The kidnapping limit expired in June of 1995. The poisoning limit expired on February 13, 2000. NPA Chief Setsuo Tanaka publicly admitted defeat. The 40th anniversary in March of 2024 produced significant retrospective coverage from Kobe Shimbun, Daily Shinsho, and Shukan Post. No DNA breakthroughs have followed. Cultural progeny includes Kaoru Takamura's novel Lady Joker, published in 1997 and translated to English in 2021, the Laughing Man character in the anime series Ghost in the Shell, and the 2020 film The Voice of Sin, starring Shun Oguri. But the next case would not be one of theatrical extortion, but of total annihilation, where one entire family was wiped out inside their own home in suburban Tokyo on a quiet December night. The killer would calmly stay in the house for hours, eating ice cream and using the family computer. Murder of Makiko, Setagaya family murder. A note on this entry. There is no famous Japanese unsolved case involving a victim named Makiko. The closest match, and the case Japanese true crime fans most often request, is the Setagaya family murder. The Miyazawa family's daughter was named Niina, not Makiko. This entry covers that case. Sometime between 11:30 in the evening of December 30th, 2000. And just after midnight on December 31st, an intruder entered a home in Setagaya Ward, Tokyo. He climbed through an open second-floor bathroom window. Having scaled the air conditioning unit, he killed the family's 6-year-old son first in his bed by strangulation. He stabbed the father in the head with a knife he had brought, breaking the blade tip off inside the skull. He stabbed the mother and daughter with the broken knife and a second knife taken from the kitchen. He then stayed in the house for hours. He used the family computer. He ate 4 containers of ice cream. He used the upstairs toilet without flushing. The case is, to this day, Japan's single most discussed cold case. The Miyazawa family lived at 3 Chome Kamisoshigaya, Setagaya Ward, Tokyo. Mikio Miyazawa, 44, was a marketing executive. His wife Yasuko, 41, was a homemaker and private tutor. Their daughter Nina was 8. Their son Ray was 6. The killer entered through the bathroom window. He killed the son first. He killed the father next. He killed the mother and daughter with the broken knife. Yasuko's mother Haruko discovered the bodies at 10:40 in the morning on December 31st. How does a killer kill 4 people in one night, then stay inside the house for hours afterward and walk out the next morning without ever being seen? The killer remained in the house for 2 to 10 hours. Computer logs show internet activity from 1:18 to 1:23 in the morning. He ate 4 containers of ice cream, melon, and 4 bottles of barley tea. He treated his own hand wound with the family's first aid supplies. He dumped paperwork into the bathtub and toilet. He took some of the mother's tutoring cash, but left 250,000 yen, about $2,000, untouched. Robbery is doubted as the primary motive. Over 25 years, 246,000 investigators have worked the case, cataloging 12,545 pieces of evidence and conducting roughly 1.3 million DNA comparisons without a single match. The killer left blood with a full DNA profile, fingerprints throughout the home, a blood-soaked white baseball-style shirt of which only 130 were made in Japan, a hip bag containing sand traced to both Edwards Air Force Base in California and a Japanese skate park, 2 handkerchiefs scented with Drakkar Noir cologne, and Slazenger running shoes, a British brand manufactured in South Korea. Could the answer have been outside Japan all along? The killer's DNA ancestry is the most distinctive clue. His Y chromosome haplogroup is common in East Asians, 1 in 13 Japanese, 1 in 4 to 5 Koreans. His maternal mitochondrial DNA originally suggested Southern European or Mediterranean ancestry. In July of 2025, FNN reported that Japanese police had revised the maternal lineage to the Caucasus region, prompting the Tokyo Metropolitan Police to seek Interpol cooperation on the theory the killer may be foreign and no longer in Japan. Police also revised the suspect's age estimate upward to at least 30s at the time, contradicting earlier estimates of 15 to 22. This case was a direct cause célèbre of Japan's 2010 abolition of the statute of limitations for capital crimes. It has no time limit. Major theories include a South Korean contract killer allegedly hired in a land development dispute, a motorcycle gang member, a skate park noise grudge, and a botched robbery. None has produced a suspect. In October of 2025, the arrest of a woman for the 1999 Nagoya killing of Namiko Takaba, solved by DNA, buoyed Setagaya hopes. In December of 2025, ANN News reported that lettering on the Jizo statue placed at the Sengawa River 100 days after the killings matched a stonemason's website. On the 25th anniversary, December 30th, 2025, Mikio's mother, Setsuko Miyazawa, now in her 90s, urged Japan to adopt DNA phenotyping as used in the United States. The TMPD has maintained a 20 million yen reward since 2020. But the next case would not be a Japanese killing at all, but the disappearance of a young French woman from a small ryokan in Nikko during a typhoon, whose family has spent 8 years fighting the Japanese police for an answer. Disappearance of Tiffaine Véron. In late July of 2018, a 36-year-old French art history graduate was visiting Nikko in Tochigi Prefecture on her second trip to Japan. She had just celebrated her birthday a week earlier. She had drug-resistant epilepsy, stable on treatment for years. She arrived at the Turtle Inn Ryokan on the afternoon of July 28th, sent her brother a WhatsApp photo calling the hotel cute, and stayed in due to weather. Typhoon Jongdari was passing through. The next morning, she had breakfast. She was photographed by another guest at 8:41 in the morning. The hotel manager, a volunteer police auxiliary, claimed she left around 9:53 or 9:54. She has not been seen since. Her family has spent 8 years fighting for an answer. Tiffaine Véron had been born July 22nd, 1982, in Rennes. She held an art history degree, had studied Russian and Japanese, and worked as a school assistant for children with disabilities in Poitiers. Her family includes her mother, Anne Desert, her older brother Damien, the principal investigator of her case, her sister Sibylle, a journalist, and her younger brother Stanislas. Height, 165 centimeters. When the room was opened on July 30th, 2018, her passport, money, epilepsy medication, travel diary, suitcase, and clothes were all left untouched. Only a small backpack was missing. Technical analysis showed her phone had been shut down violently. Physical destruction or battery removal, not normal power off. The Tochigi Prefectural Police initially favored a drowning theory, dispatching about 20 personnel, including divers, to search the Daya River in early August. The family later demonstrated using hydrological data that no flooding had occurred in Nikko that specific day. How does a young foreign tourist vanish from a small ryokan in a quiet mountain town, and the local police refuse for years to investigate it? It as a possible crime? In 2018, Japanese investigators applied luminol to her hotel room walls and revealed large stains, possibly of blood. No forensic analysis of these splashes has ever been shared with the family. Suspect angles include the hotel manager, with contradictory testimony, blood trace stains, and police auxiliary status, only ever interviewed as a witness. A fake guide man, known to police for groping women near a local shrine, who had been missing from the area since January of 2018. And a man near the hotel, who reportedly told the family he knew where Tiffaine was, but was never interrogated. In September of 2018, The Poitiers prosecutor's office opened an investigation for kidnapping and unlawful confinement. In January of 2023, the case was transferred to the Cold Case Unit of the Nanterre Judicial Tribunal. The UN Committee on Enforced Disappearances has issued at least 5 formal requests to Japan, with no response received as of July 2024. Damien Véron has made 8 trips to Japan between 2018 and 2026. He has organized searches with mountain rescue specialists, 7 Japan rescue dog search dogs in August of 2019, independent searches of bamboo groves and abandoned houses, and silent marches in Nikko. The family has been aided by retired Japanese ally Kazunari Watanabe, who has visited Nikko more than 47 times to assist. Could a single Wi-Fi router log have been the detail Japanese police chose not to look at? In July of 2025, a Swiss data analysis firm revealed Tiffany's phone had continued pinging the hotel Wi-Fi from inside her room until approximately 11:40 in the morning, flatly contradicting the manager's testimony that she had left at 9:50. In February of 2026, Damien deposited a 43,000 signature petition at the Élysée demanding President Macron intervene. Macron made a state visit to Japan from March 31st to April 2nd of 2026. On April 8th, 2026, a volunteer Japanese citizen obtained the local Nikko police investigation report. It revealed police tracker dogs had detected Tiffany's scent behind the Turtle Inn in late September of 2018, 2 months after she vanished. No bone fragments or remains discovered in the Nikko area between 2018 and 2026 have been DNA confirmed as Tiffany's. But the last case on this list would unfold not in a forest or a hotel or an apartment, but inside an underground concrete septic chamber, beneath an elementary school teacher's residence in a small Fukushima village, where a body was found in conditions so bizarre nobody's been able to explain how it got there. The Miyakoji Village septic tank body. In late February of 1989, in a tiny mountain village in the Abukuma Highlands of Fukushima Prefecture, a 23-year-old female elementary school teacher returned from a 4-day holiday for the Showa Emperor's funeral. She glanced into her squat pit toilet. She saw what looked like a shoe at the bottom. She went outside to the rear pump-out lid. She found a human foot. The toilet had a 20-centimeter upper opening and a 36-centimeter outer pump-out access. Physically, nearly impossible for an adult man to enter voluntarily. The recovery of the body required demolition of the toilet building with heavy excavation equipment. The official ruling was accidental death. Almost no one in Japanese true crime believes it. Furumichi Elementary School in Miyakoji Village, Tamura District, Fukushima Prefecture, is in a village about 40 kilometers from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. The body was that of Naoyuki Kano, 25 or 26, around 170 centimeters tall, around 70 kilograms. He had lived in Miyakoji's Iwaisawa district with his parents and grandmother. He had been a high school baseball player and a band guitarist. He was head of the village youth association's recreation section. He frequently emceed local weddings. He was regarded as a leadership track young man. Crucially, he was employed by Utsue Valve Service, a subcontractor responsible for maintenance of equipment at Fukushima Daiichi. The body was wedged in the chamber with knees folded, hands bent, head tilted left in rigor mortis. He was naked from the waist up, despite midwinter cold, clutching his hooded jumper, sweatshirt, and 2 undershirts to his chest. One shoe was inside the chamber atop his head. The other shoe was found on a nearby riverbank. Only minor abrasions appeared on his elbows and knees. There were no signs of struggle. Cause of death was officially ruled freezing, combined with thoracic circulatory disorder. hypothermia from chest compression in confined cold space. His car was found about 1 kilometer away in a co-op parking lot, parked askew, doors unlocked, keys still in the ignition. He had last been heard saying through a doorway to his father at 10 in the morning on February 24th, "I'm going out for a bit." How does a fully grown man, by all accounts a beloved son and rising community leader, end up wedged into a small concrete septic tank, half naked, clutching his own clothes, in midwinter Fukushima? Miharu Police Station ruled the death an accident. Voluntary entry into the septic tank for peeping purposes, getting stuck, dying of hypothermia. The teacher was an acquaintance of Kano through the village youth association, presumably aware she was on holiday. Critics have highlighted numerous problems. The opening dimensions are physically near impossible for a man of his size to enter. Half naked, clutching his clothing, is abnormal voluntary behavior. The shoes were split between chamber and riverbank. The car was parked carelessly with keys in the ignition. And crime scene preservation was destroyed when the body was hosed down twice on site before forensic exam. Only an external coroner's examination was performed. A full judicial autopsy was never done. The case occurred amid bitter local nuclear politics. Just weeks before, on January 1st, 1989, a major recirculation pump rupture at Fukushima Daini Unit 3 had triggered a TEPCO president's apology visit. 3 days later, a TEPCO nuclear maintenance section chief committed suicide by jumping in front of a train. On February 19th, 10 days before Kano's death, a village mayoral election had pitted an incumbent pro-nuclear mayor against an anti-nuclear challenger. Kano had been campaigning for the incumbent. He had canceled his last campaign speech the night before, citing snow. Could a young man working at the country's largest nuclear plant have learned something he should not have known? Conspiracy theories, including a 1996 dramatized film by Fukushima-born anti-nuclear filmmaker Fumiki Watanabe, allege Kano had discovered electoral fraud or nuclear safety irregularities at Fukushima Daiichi and was killed by pro-nuclear village interests. The victim's father, Tadashi Kano, spent decades disputing the accidental ruling, gathering 4,300 signatures, more than the village's 3,800 population, and preserving the broken septic tank in his yard. The 15-year limit for a possible killing expired in 2004. The 2010 reform does not apply. The case remains officially classified as accidental death. Mayakoji's evacuation order following the March 2011 Fukushima disaster was lifted on April 1, 2014, the first area to have its order lifted. The case is widely cited in Japanese popular memory as the first unsolved or unexplained death of the Heisei era. This was all from our side today. Thanks for watching. Click here to check out another video.